Welcome back to the Avocado Toast Budget. If you're new here, my name is Lexa, and today we are going to talk about my worst financial mistakes. Look, if you've been here for a while, you already know I'm pretty much an open book. I love talking about my past money mistakes or missteps, things I've learned along the way, because I feel like, A, it's not talked about enough, and whenever we do talk about it, it creates space for everyone else to talk about it and come forward and share what they are feeling and their mistakes and just frustrations as well. But also, B, it allows me to hopefully maybe teach you some things, and maybe you can make your own mistakes and not have to make my mistakes. Maybe you can learn a few things from them. Plus, today I just wanted like more of a chill, laid-back video, just chatting about some of the mistakes I've made, reflecting on them, what I wish I would have done, what I learned from them, and how I changed moving forward. But before we get started, if you want to learn more about saving, paying off debt, investing, and how to finally feel more confident with your money, make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below, push that bell notification, that way you never miss an upload. Also, I just want to say I have a very, very exciting announcement, so definitely make sure that you hit that little bell icon, that way you're the first to know about it, because it's pretty fucking epic. Okay, let's go ahead and get into it. Financial fuck up number one, the one that I feel like really just kind of started it all. The first time that I ever spent more than I could afford on my credit card. Funnily enough, I remember this moment. I don't remember like the transaction, but I remember the first time ever looking at my Capital One app for my one credit card that I got a couple of years back. Somehow I had managed to pay it off in full every month and not overspend. I'm not really sure how that happened, but I did. And I still remember sitting in the Kohl's parking lot, looking at my phone, looking at my bank account, looking at my credit card app, comparing the two, and realizing that there was no way I was going to be able to pay that off in full whenever it was due. Now, a couple of like interesting things happened here, because this was really the start to me quickly snowballing into $20,000 of credit card debt. And it's really interesting why and how it happened now looking back on it, because in one way I was like kind of horrified because I knew that like this was the first time I was using a credit card in a way that I didn't want to ideally use a credit card. But also I had had this credit card with no real concept and understanding of how credit cards even work to begin with, but also how interest rates worked. So in my mind, I thought that your APR, the percentage they tell you that you are paying, meant that you were paying that percent of your total balance every month. So in a weird way, I was actually pleasantly surprised when that bill came around, because I believe I can like almost remember the exact number. I think it was $1,129. And I remember thinking that next month I was gonna owe like 20% on that. So I thought I was gonna owe like over $200. So I was like weirdly pleasantly surprised when it was like around 20 or less, which like ended up not being a good thing, because it was almost like I had this like expectation that it was going to be so much worse than it was, that even though it was like bad, and I didn't realize at the time how much that like adds up over time, especially when I was putting more than just like $1,000 on a card, I didn't really question it, and I was almost kind of relieved that it wasn't as much as I thought it was going to be. It's not a good thing to be relieved at credit card interest rates, because other than like payday loans, they're like the worst ones that you can get. Don't worry, I'll talk more about the credit card debt cycle that I ended up getting in and how that manifested from this, but I just wanted to throw this in as like the first one, because I really do feel like it was such a momentous moment in my financial fuck up journey, and it's so interesting because I didn't see it that way at the time, but I remember so much about it. Financial fuck up number two, my $70,000 in student loans. Now, I do want to preface this by saying I do not think all student loans are a waste of money. I do think that student loans are unethical and the whole system is terrible, and student loans should just be forgiven. That's like a whole other video. I can definitely make that if you want to know more. But I do want to say that just because this was like a financial fuck up for me doesn't mean that I think that that's the case for everyone. And I also do see the value of my student loans. If I had to go back and do things, it's not that I wouldn't take out student loans or that I wouldn't get the degree that I did. I'm not much of a person for regret. I'm very happy with where I am now in life, and I feel like if I changed anything, then I probably wouldn't be in this position. So I definitely don't regret any of these. However, all things considered, I do wish in theory I could go back and do things differently and still end up where I am, just with a lot less student loans. Like most everyone else is, when I decided where I was gonna go to school, I was still a minor, I was 17. And no one really talked to me about the scope of what student loans meant. College was like inevitable. It was just a thing that you went on and did. It was expected of me, especially because I was a gifted student. I did pretty well in school. It was just like a given. It wasn't something I really questioned. However, I knew that I wanted to get away and I didn't want to stay in my hometown, which is very ironic because I am now back living in my hometown, but I digress. But knowing what I know now, I just wish that I had known more about what student loans were, what the payments would look like, and what the reality of trying to pay back such a large amount of debt really meant. Because it was kind of just like something that was like a thing. Like no one really emphasized how big of a thing taking out that much debt is. And if you don't already know, I have my master's degree in behavioral psychology, and my master's degree actually cost me like half as much as my undergrad. And that's literally just because of the school I went to. There was like nothing special about the school, okay? It was a small ass school in a small ass city in Michigan, and I had like 2 or 3 teachers who I adored and who made the school for me what it was. But honestly, the whole situation was just like so fucked. They sold it to me like I won a full ride scholarship, all tuition paid for. However, they did not mention that room and board is not included in that, and room and board was like the majority of my tuition. And also, cleverly did not mention, I'm sure it was somewhere in the fine print somewhere, that the school expected you to live on campus until you were 21. And it was so expensive to live on campus. And that's where the majority of my loans came from. I believe I only paid about $20,000 for my master's degree, and about $40,000 to $50,000 of my student loans came from my undergrad. Of course, this is not as much as like some other people, but if I had to do it over again, I would either go somewhere that I got a true full ride for, because I had offers that were like true full rides that I could have came out not having any student loans, or I would have taken like online classes, because honestly, looking back, it's not like my school had like much of a nightlife or like college life anyway, and I'm glad I went. I met some awesome people there. It's the reason I'm where I am today, like I said. However, I would have been just as happy and content taking a year off and then doing some online classes, going through them at my own pace to get whatever degree I decided I wanted to get at the time. The whole system is just mind-blowing to me that at 17, I was made to make so many life-changing decisions that I did not understand the full scope of. And now, student loan payments are returning in February, and I will be paying off those student loans at some point, but I'm in no rush. Again, if you want to know why, I can talk more about that in a video. Just let me know in the comments down below if that's something that you're interested in. Financial fuck up number 3 is my credit card debt cycle. And really, it was refinancing. Now, I do want to say, I think that this is interesting because my decision to refinance my credit cards was both one of the best and one of the worst financial decisions I've ever made. And let me talk about that. In order to pay off my credit card debt, I chose to do something called refinancing. This is where you basically get a personal loan for however much you owe in credit card debt, use that personal loan to pay off your credit card debt, then you owe the bank who gave you this personal loan money. And typically it's nice because A, there's like monthly payments, you have a set time schedule to pay it off, and B, the interest rate is usually a lot lower. However, what happened is not once, not twice, but 3 times, I would take out a personal loan, pay off my credit card, swear that I wasn't going to spend money on my credit card again, and I was gonna figure out a way to pay off that personal loan, never go back into credit card debt, and then inevitably I would go back into credit card debt, get a personal loan, pay off that credit card, cycle back into it, and it was just this repeating cycle, which ended up costing me $20,000 in credit card debt. On the one hand, my decision to refinance did, when I was able to get a hold of my debt and stop overspending on credit cards, allow me to pay off my debt a lot faster, and I really did benefit from having those like specific monthly payments and a goal to pay it off during a certain period of time. It was very hard for my brain to understand how to pay off credit card debt while it was like on a credit card. So that was very helpful. However, the first few times that I did that, it wasn't helpful because it just ended up clearing up my balance for me, and then I racked up my credit card again. If I had to do it over again, I wish that I would have spent a couple of months learning how to budget in a way that worked for me, learning some personal finance tips so that I could manage my credit card spending before taking out a personal loan to pay it off. Because once I got on a budgeting system that worked for me and I was able to understand how to balance spending money on a credit card while also making sure that you had enough money to pay that credit card off every month, then I was like good to go, and that refinancing became a good option. However, the cycle that I was in is a very common cycle for people to get in, so I do want to talk about that and be transparent. transparent, that if you don't already have some sort of a budgeting system that works for you and a plan to not overspend on your credit cards, refinancing might just get you into even more debt. Personally, the two apps that I love to manage your credit card spending are Digit and YNAB. I used YNAB for like ever. I still use YNAB for my business expenses, but lately I've been using Digit. It's more automated, it's more user-friendly. I just like the interface more. I've had a lot of people ask me questions about if I'm still using YNAB. Yes and no, but I plan on making a video talking about that more. Financial fuck up number 4 was my first ever missed payment on a credit card that happened this year. I'm pretty adamant about auto pay, paying off my credit cards in full, making sure that I pay them on time, and managing my credit card spending now that I know how to do that. However, if you've been here for a little while, you might know that 2021 got a little crazy, had a lot of changes. I quit my day job, started running the ATV full time. Then my relationship ended. I moved across country all of a sudden, and things just got a little wonky there for a while. And I did not realize that I had a charge placed on my Torrid credit card, which store credit cards are like not a thing I recommend, but I got one a while ago, so I use it whenever I would shop there. And I didn't realize that there was like one charge on there for something that I had purchased in store, but it was shipped online. Either way, it just was like out of sight, out of mind. I had auto pay on, but for some reason it just didn't work. And a few months went by, I didn't even think about it until I went to go log into that credit card and saw that I had multiple missed payments, late fees, and reports to my credit score. So unfortunately what happened was when I called them, they were willing to remove the late fees, but since it had been more than 30 days that had passed since I had overdue on that payment, they'd already reported it to the credit bureaus, and it tanked my credit score over 60 points overnight. This was so stressful. It was like one of those things that just felt like, oh my God. And it was really hard because I talk so much about not shaming yourself for your past money mistakes on here and trying to let go of some of that guilt. And I really had to put my money where my mouth was on that one, because here I am, a financial expert who's been featured in Time and CNBC and Business Insider, and I was forgetting to make a payment on my credit card. But when I took a step back, gave myself the space to understand that I'm human, things happened, I was dealing with a lot in life, and honestly, if that is the worst thing that happened during that time, I got out pretty unscathed. Luckily, my credit score has almost nearly rebuilt itself. I'm back in the 700s, thankfully, which helps because I don't tend to use my credit score very often, but I like knowing that I have a higher credit score there just in case anything happens in the future. But it was just a mess, and it kind of led to like another financial fuck up because I was so panicky when I noticed that I had that on there that I immediately clicked the button to like pay it off in full because I didn't notice if it was like more than 30 days. And my brain just went into like panic mode, you know? And the button that I clicked was hooked up to an old bank account that only had like $10 in it. So not only did I have a late fee on that card, which luckily got removed, but dropped my credit score, I then went and overdrafted that bank account. So I had to call them and ask them to remove the late fee. And that was the first time that I'd overdrafted an account in like forever because I never used that account. I only kept it open so that I had like an in-person bank when I was living in Michigan. It was a mess. But I think it's important to talk about because if you are someone who is going through that or who is just feeling a lot of shame and guilt for having gone through something like that before, just know if a financial expert can do it, you're in good company. It's all good. Learn from it and move forward. And last but not least, my 5th financial fuck up I want to talk about is my car. Now, luckily, my car hasn't been like a money guzzling monster, knock on wood. It's been like decently reliable. The reason that I put this in the category of financial fuck-ups is because it was the first car that I ever bought myself with my own money and went through that whole process, and I was so not prepared for it. I was completely overwhelmed. I was car shopping on a vacation to see my dad in Florida. I had to get a car. We flew down there for the purpose of getting a car because I guess, I don't know, Florida's apparently a good place to buy a car. And because it's like known as a good place to buy a car, all these cars were selling out. So I would see a car online, call up the dealership, it would be there, I would get there, and the car would have like just been sold, not stolen, thankfully. And this was like repeat throughout the whole day. And I was so overwhelmed by the end of it that the last car that we went to see that was like actually there, I just bought. It was raining. I couldn't see the details of this car. The place was about to close. It was dark out. It was an absolute mess. But my partner told me that it was like a good car, like the type of car, not like the car itself. Come to find out, there was some miscommunication there. And I was just done, so I bought it. It's been fine. It hasn't caused me a lot of issues, but I absolutely hate my car. And I spent like $7,000 on it. And it was like my first big purchase for myself. And I so wish that I would have just like taken some time to know what to ask, take some time to find the car that was right for me, and spend that money in a way that would bring me a car that like I would actually want to drive in. I am thankful that I haven't had to put a ton of extra money into the car, and for the fact that it's like a 2012, it's lasted me just fine. However, I definitely learned some things about buying a car and what questions to ask, because there were so many questions I did like not even know to ask when you're buying a car. And had I asked them, I would not have bought this car, including the fact that this car doesn't have cruise control. And I just assumed my 2002 Ford Taurus that came before it had cruise control, then it should have cruise control too. But no, apparently it's not a given. And that might not be a big deal, except for the fact that at the time I was making trips back and forth from Michigan to Missouri, vice versa, which is like a 12-hour car drive. And it's very difficult to do that when you don't have cruise control. So that's it. That's a list of 5 of my worst financial mess ups. In the grand scheme of things, could have been a lot worse. I'm very thankful. Honestly, I am sure that here in a year or two, or maybe even next month, I can make a whole other video about this, because I am sure I will continue making mistakes and learning from those mistakes. If you are someone who is going through something similar, or you are just feeling kind of down about the financial mistakes that you have had, I just want to say I understand. I understand how hard it is to shake those feelings of shame and guilt, because it is so ingrained in us from so many different facets of our society. But you are allowed to let that go, and you are not a better or worse person depending on how much debt you have, depending on the financial mistakes that you've had, depending on your net worth, anything like that. So I really hope that, if nothing else, this video is entertaining, maybe useful, maybe at least you can relate to it, or hopefully you learned something cool. If any of those things apply, please remember to give this video a big thumbs up. It really helps out with the YouTube algorithm, helps boost this video to the top. That way more people can find this content. And I will see you all next time. Bye.